and welcome to Magic by Design. If it's your first time listening, first of all, welcome. It's great to have you on board. Magic by Design is a podcast in which we are aiming to watch and review every Disney animated feature film. Each and every week, we break down a movie from the Disney canon in an attempt to discover the secrets behind the magic. We watched Lady and the Tramp with Cats this week. I mean Disney's 20th animated feature, The Aristocats. But before we recap two of our previous episodes, allow me to introduce myself. I am Ken, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host / brother Garrett. Garrett, how are you?
I'll be sad if someone's first episode is The Aristocats.
Yeah, it's not really a good jumping in point, is it?
There's good films. You can listen to Sleeping Beauty. That's a good film.
Bambi.
Jungle Book. Good songs.
Cinderella's good.
Yeah. And then we get to The Aristocats. Right there on the Saludos Amigos level. Or Three Caballeros. Which one do I like? I never remember which one I like.
You like the Three Caballeros.
There you go. Right there on...
No, you like Saludos Amigos, sorry.
There you go. Right there on the Three Caballeros level of films I don't like. Yay!
Yeah, we should really stop giving our initial takes at the start, because literally the podcast could just end here.
Well, still, we don't want to bury it. We're not teases, Ken. We don't want to spend the entire 40 minutes or so that this podcast generally runs teasing people with our takes, tantalizingly dangling them in front of them, and forcing them to listen to our voice for a very long time before they work out that Aristocats is not very good. So we'll lead right out there with it. Aristocats is not very good. Also, cats are bad. Why would you build a film around cats?
Yeah, the film Cats got panned, so, you know.
Name one good film about cats. Name one. Catwoman? No, it's terrible.
Nope.
Best thing you can do is Batman Returns, because it has Catwoman in it. But that's not about her.
That's adjacent.
It's about penguins. There's plenty of good films about penguins. You got Happy Feet, you got March of the Penguins, you got Batman Returns. There you go. 3 good films about penguins, and I didn't even have to think about it.
You got Surf's Up.
Surf's Up. We're up to 4. There's that weird... Is it Surf's Up or Happy Feet that has the weird WWE sequel? WWE
Surf's
version?
Up.
Yes, the weird WWE Surf's Up film. There. 4 films. No good films about cats. Not a single good film in the history of film about cats.
There's a reason most of these animal films contain dogs.
Unless you extend cats to lions, which I guess The Lion King is a good film, but that's cheating.
That's a different type of animal.
Yes, they're lions. We're not talking about the broader cat species.
We're talking about domesticated cats.
Yes, in which there has never been a good film. Legitimately, there has never been a good film about cats.
I think that's a solid take, Gar. Let's just end it there.
Yeah.
This one passed me by as a child. I had a vague awareness of the characters and the main song, but that's about it. And having watched it now, I'm glad I missed it.
I think Aristocats is a good pun.
That's it.
And the film goes downhill from there.
That's all they had. The Aristocats is notable, Gar, for being the first Disney animated feature that was not based on an existing property.
And it shows. We're like, why don't they ever make things that aren't based on existing material? And it turns out, because when they do, it's extremely derivative of the existing material. So why even bother?
Strangely, the project began life as an original script for a 2-part live-action episode of Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Colour. So they were going to do the cats in live action, and, well, following 2 years of rewrites, Walt Disney suggested the project might be more suitable for animation and placed the project in turnaround while The Jungle Book was in advanced production. So turnaround means that they basically put it in as a tax write-off as such, where they write it off as a loss and they're open to other studios buying the property, as far as I understand.
Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Colour was revived this year, wasn't it, for Disney Plus? I believe so.
When The Jungle Book was nearly complete, Disney appointed Ken Anderson to develop preliminary work on The Aristocats, making it the last film project he would approve in his lifetime before his death in December 1966.
It was his biggest mistake. He would have cancelled it were he still alive.
He also contacted Phil Harris about doing the voice of the main male protagonist, who would turn out to be Thomas O'Malley, and that was the extent of Disney's contribution to the film. So we talked about last week, The Jungle Book is the last film he worked on, well, even though, well, I suppose it wasn't finished by the time he died, but he did have some finger in this pie, but not much.
He instructed the pie to be made, and then pointed out who should make the pie, but then the pie was made after he had died. There you go, to drag your metaphor through the mud.
The Aristocats was released on Christmas Eve 1970 to positive reception and box office success.
Both are wrong. People shouldn't have seen this film.
Yeah, it was extraordinarily cheap to produce though, so it didn't make a lot of money.
Well, there you go. And bloody well shows if you watch this film. This film looks like garbage.
Ken Anderson spent 18 months. Anderson?
I'm going to do it every time. Sorry.
Okay. Luckily, this is the last time we mention him. Ken Anderson spent 18 months developing the design of the characters, and 5 of the legendary 9 old men worked at it. You wouldn't know by the result. We begin with one of the lazier opening titles, A Sign of Things to Come.
Like the animation in this film sucks. It's not very lead here, Ken. It sucks. It's really bad. It's like, especially the human characters are just terrible. The frame rate's all over the place. The edges bleed into each other. It looks terrible. Like, really, really terrible.
And in previous episode, we've talked about this era being cheap and cost effective, but this is extremely cheap. A massive step down even from the cost saving measures of the previous films. And I have a note here. It kind of looks like, literally, they had the rough drawings. You know, they had the rough drawings that they watch for dailies, and then they go, oh yeah, let's proceed with that, or let's cut that. Yeah. It looks like they slapped paint on that, and that was it.
Job done, that's the film.
No cleanup,
fully
nothing.
Animated. Like, we talked about The Jungle Book, which is perfectly pleasant to look at, but not particularly interesting to look at. You know, it's serviceable. Gets the job done. It's not as good as Bambi, it's not as good as Sleeping Beauty, but it gets the job done. This is terrible. It's, like, really actively bad. It's like, what's the name of the woman character who owns the cats? Duchess?
No,
Duchess is the mother cat.
It's Madame something.
Madame something or other. Like, that model, that character, like, legitimately, her hair just bleeds into the rest of her body. Anytime she moves, it just does not work.
It looks like she's melting at some point.
It does look like she's melting. And it's terrible. Like, I really feel bad calling something like that terrible, but, like, it's far and away the worst looking Disney film. It looks so bad.
And if you see her interacting with the cats, they do kind of a mid-shot, and they don't even bother to fill in the detail in the cats' faces. They're just wandering around with weird looking faces on.
It's so cheap. It's probably not lazy, because I assume the people who worked on it probably worked relatively hard on it. They just didn't have the money or the time to actually do it. I hate when people are like, it's lazy. When you know people probably worked very hard. Like, the worst things in the world that were produced, there are people that worked hard on them. There's just reasons they didn't work out. Usually reasons out of the control of the people who worked on it. So I always hate when it's like, oh, it's lazy, but it's so cheap. And it shows in a way that's really, it's unpleasant to look at. It has like, it's like watching a slideshow. The opening sequence where they dance in the frickin' hall. Like, it's like watching a slideshow.
It's like a flip book.
I'm watching a PowerPoint display of this film. I'm not watching this film.
Yeah, and we've noted the jerky movements before in other films where they took shortcuts, but this took it to a whole new level. Like, there's shortcuts all over the place. Overall, you really get the sense that the studio have given up on animation, and the 9 old men had run out of ideas. Their creative juice and youthful enthusiasm had long gone over nearly 3 decades. So, you know, they're all old people at this point, or at least middle-aged.
Do you think they're, like, checked out? They don't care anymore?
But I do think at every point in Disney history, when they've had these Renaissance period, there was new blood coming in and young people and better ideas. I just think they ran out of ideas, but also the studio weren't behind animation anymore. And as you said, I don't think people didn't care. They just didn't have the resources to produce it. It even looked flat. And they made no real effort to introduce perspective or 3D. Like, one of the things I noted here was the vehicles. Like, at one stage, the butler rides a motorcycle, and they don't even bother to animate the wheels spinning. It just
moves.
It just looks really crap.
Yeah, it's a really bad looking film, and it veers into unpleasant. It's not good to look at. As I said, The Jungle Book, serviceable. It's not unpleasant to look at. It's perfectly fine, but it's not, super magic animation. This is just bad. It's just bad, and like the plot and all of that doesn't make it any better. It's not a good film. It's really not. It's like I would say I think it's worse than The Three Caballeros, Ken, because The Three Caballeros is at least well animated and like competently constructed, even if I found it extremely boring.
It was a bit too long. Was the issue, I think.
I think this is like bad. I think it's just bad. Like, what's the depth of this story? Like, you made the joke at the start that it's basically The Lady and the Tramp, and like the bits of it that aren't The Lady and the Tramp are just the 101 Dalmatians.
I had it in my notes. I made that joke earlier, but it is true. The story is basically Lady and the Tramp with a dash of 101 Dalmatians.
Yeah, it's like the 2 dog films we did. We'll put them together and make it Cats.
So you have the love story element of Lady and the Tramp and the
Lost Kids element of
Lost Kids and Journey Home element. Yeah, exactly.
101 Dalmatians just jammed together, but it's Cats. So like, there's not an original idea. The film's not about anything. The music is like terrible, except that one song, which is okay, and the I Want to Be a Cat song.
We'll get to that. There's some notes on why that might have been the case. This film is set in Paris, Gar. You thought Lady and the Tramp was set in Paris. Mm-hmm. Perhaps you were thinking of this film, despite having never seen it.
I've no cultural awareness of this film, none whatsoever.
Maybe you had a premonition of what was to come.
Maybe I did, because like this film, there's films that I've seen that I remember. There's films I haven't seen that I'm at least aware of the cultural references of. This film, nothing. Legitimately nothing. I knew absolutely nothing about the Aristocats.
The writers felt that London added a lot to 101 Dalmatians, so they decided that they needed a setting to add to the ambience of the film, and they settled on Paris as the setting. I don't think this setting added anything to the film. They didn't make use of it at all, other than having the Eiffel Tower in the background in a few shots. So it could have really been anywhere. And, I thought about this and I was thinking, take Ratatouille as an example. It's also set in Paris, but as well as being a beautiful backdrop, it adds character and atmosphere to the film, to the point where the city almost becomes a character in the film.
Yes.
That's what they were aiming for, but I don't think they achieved it here.
No, they were just like, Paris is cool, let's set the film in Paris. Why are we doing that? Who knows? Are we going to make it any way substantial to the plot? No. It's just...
Do the characters even have French accents? They do not.
Except one. Duchess has kind of a French accent.
Kind of French accent.
Except when she sings, when she doesn't have any accent whatsoever. But other than that... Yeah,
English and American accents again.
It's just... completely abandons the idea of actually... There's no sense of place in this film. It just happens to be in Paris.
I agree with that. I have a note here as well, Gar. I can't blame Edgar for wanting to get rid of those cats. The rich old lady is clearly insane. Mm-hmm. And
she's giving her money to cats!
What are cats going to do with a vast fortune, Gar?
Yeah.
They're going to invest in salmon fisheries, perhaps. Possibly a scheme to suppress mice.
You see,
they're friends with mice in this film, I guess.
Yes, that's very strange. Why do they like mice to eat mice? But I think his plan is flawed. I think he should just wait till she dies and then off the cats.
Or why didn't you just kill the cats straight away? Just literally get a burlap sack. He had a burlap sack later. Tie him up, throw him in the river. Job done.
Yeah.
Old school.
Maybe he was driving to the river. Where was he driving?
I don't know. Where? Yeah, because at no point did he even imply that he was going to kill them. Uh-huh. So what was he going to do with them? Just keep them there?
Just drive them very far away.
And just leave them there?
I like the way he drove past the police station and he's like, oh no, they might know what I'm doing.
These cats.
They might have X-ray vision and see the cats in my bag or box or whatever.
That's clearly those famous cats who are rich.
Yes, those rich, wealthy cats who will have a large inheritance when that woman dies.
Those Aristocats. The name of the film, Gar.
It is the name of the film. They are very fancy cats. Again, good pun. Pun is the best part of the film.
In this film, Gar, they have a bit of a MacGuffin in Rock for the Mouse. Uh-huh. Because he ties the bits together where, obviously if he never went about trying to find the cats or trying to help them, the lady or the madame wouldn't have known where they went. So he kind of drives the plot in terms of organising the effort to save them. He's also voiced by Winnie the Pooh.
There you go. He does occasionally veer a little away from his Pooh voice.
He does.
But then by the end of the film, he's just doing his Pooh voice. So
he also had dead soulless eyes, which I thought was very off-putting.
Well, that's what all rats. They have dead soulless eyes. They're not soulful animals.
So, yeah, there was a play on that. They like the mouse and he's their friend. And then he tries to convince the alley cats to aid Thomas O'Malley in saving the kitten and Duchess from the butler at the end. And they go to eat him until he finally remembers their name. That was actually a funny gag.
Thomas O'Malley is really a poor man's Tramp. I know we're doing the comparison, but Thomas O'Malley just isn't interesting.
Yeah, he's voiced by Phil Harris, as we said, who was Baloo in the last film. He would also star in the next film. So this is a string of films starring Sterling Holloway and Phil Harris.
Well, Sterling Holloway's in all of these at this stage.
Yes. He
pops up playing every character.
He's like their mascot, but
he's like what's John Ratzenberg? Burger.
Ratzenberger.
Burger, there we go. In all the Pixar films, he just pops up, does the voice. There you go. Everyone's like, oh hey.
Thomas O'Malley is basically a mixture of Baloo and the Tramp, but less effective.
That's the thing. Nothing in this film is original. Name one original thought this film has. We'll set it in Paris, but they don't have any inkling of how to incorporate that into the film in an interesting way. It's just we'll set it in Paris because when the person who wrote 101 Dalmatians set that in London, that seemed to work. So we're going to do that here. It's this film doesn't have an original thought. That's the reason this film, it's not particularly well animated. It has no interesting characters, no interesting plot. But the worst part of it is it's fully derivative of other films.
Even the jazz music, which some people love in this film, was used more effectively in previous films.
Yeah, it's just this film doesn't have an original thought. There's no reason to watch this film if you've seen any of the other films. I didn't love a 101 written one of the Dalmatians, but it's still much better than this. And like, I didn't love Lady and the Tramp either, but it's still much better than this.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one to call, Gar.
It's not tough to call. It's terrible. It's simple to call.
I meant it's a tough one to understand how it could have gone so wrong from the heights of the likes of Sleeping Beauty.
It's very easy to understand why it went so wrong. They don't care about animation, and they wrote this themselves. We now learn this era of Disney needed something to adapt. There's a good reason why every other film before this is an adaptation, because the story department of that wing of Disney clearly isn't very good.
Yeah, they're good at adapting, but not at creating.
It's very, like, as I said, adapting is so much easier, because even if you change it, you still have you have the structure of the story, you have the basis of the characters, you have the hard stuff to create. Like tweaking with the plot mechanics is, relatively easy. Creating interesting characters, interesting morals, a story that works, all of that is really hard. So it's clear they couldn't do it. And then when they tried to do it, it's just like, let's just do the other stuff we kind of did, except cats.
Yeah, so we talked about some Disney movies being a bit of a Frankenstein of elements that they've used in previous films or techniques that they've invoked from other films, but this really feels like something that's put together, not even a Frankenstein, I'll call it a leftover movie.
Yeah.
It's like putting together some stuff that you already have in the fridge to make a meal that's not as good as the meal that you had when it was fresh, but it's a meal.
It's rotten!
It's frozen. I've eaten it.
I like the way you went straight to a kitchen metaphor, because we've been watching too much Kitchen Nightmares. It's like, how would Gordon Ramsay be upset at this? It's like, oh, it's not fresh. It's not original. It's frozen.
I will say I enjoyed some of the comedy that was in the film. It came quite a lot from the kittens. Some of the lines were quite funny. I wrote a few down. One of them was, "Gee, Marie, why'd you have to go and fall off the bridge?"
Stupid cats.
Because at one stage she falls off the bridge when they're trying to... They're walking along a train track, and classic film trope, Garrett. The train is going to come, and then Marie just goes and falls off, even though they're cats, so they should be good at balancing.
And then Thomas O'Malley falls in the river and he nearly dies.
And there's another one towards the end when Thomas O'Malley tries to get Duchess and the kittens to stay with him in his shanty house.
Because he's deeply selfish.
And they want to go back to being rich. And he's like, that's okay. I'll take you back home tomorrow. He's very disappointed being cock-blocked. And one of the kittens said, I can't remember, I think it's the black one, said, well, we almost had a father.
Yeah, they were so upset. But there were like 3 different species of cat. They all had like black, white, and orange. So how does this make sense?
Who is the kitten's father, by the way? That was something I wrote down here.
But like...
It must be 3 separate fathers.
It must be 3 separate fathers. This is like the 4th iteration of the story. Like, Duchess just keeps bringing home daddies. And they keep having kids. And then Duchess gets fed up of Thomas O'Malley and his freewheeling ways, boots him out of the house, and away she goes again.
But then the kittens were born at the same time. Gangbang?
I don't know how this works.
She got gangbanged.
That's not how that works.
This is a PG podcast, I'll leave that there. Another thing I noted as well here, Gar, it was nice to see Scat Cat was actually played by a black person, but then they immediately ruined it by having the stereotypical Asian cat.
There you go. The outdated cultural references live again.
Yeah, nearly every film we've watched in the last few weeks has had that tagline on Disney+.
Yeah, clearly the 60s and the 70s, which, by the way, we've flown through the 60s and the 70s. It felt like we were stuck in the 40s for about 20 years. And now we're already in the 70s. Where did the 50s and 60s go? And
we'll be flying through that too, Gar, because there's another 3 films, maybe? And then we're into the 80s.
And then we're into the good stuff again. I mean, the Aristocats. It's amazing how, like, they felt the need to maintain the pace of films in the 40s during the war when, like, no one wanted to go see films because, war. And then by the time they got to the 50s and 60s, it's like, we'll release one every 3 or 4 years. There's no war going on. It doesn't matter anymore. There's a lot of elements here. Like, Walt Disney is dead. We'll talk about this in a while. And, the people at the studio who are remaining, the people who are in charge, just don't have faith in animation, and they're perfectly happy for it to die. Just finishing up on the story here, Gar, we have a classic Lady and the Tramp ending. Thomas O'Malley goes to live with them and is rich now. He has a collar on, so he's respectable. So just proving how derivative this film is, they have the exact same ending as Lady and the Tramp. But this cat is just like, you have millions? Oh, will you marry me? Thomas O'Malley's a gold digger. That's my summary of this film. He just wants Duchess's money. Yeah, so he's pretending he wants them to go live with him in his shack. But yeah, it's like when someone pays for something for you and you're like, oh, are you sure you don't want me to split that with you? And it's like, you don't actually anticipate them to say yes. When they do say yes, it's like, oh, okay, I guess okay, I'll pay for my half. All right. Okay. That's Thomas O'Malley. It's like, you should come live with me. And he looks at them and then they're like, no. It's like, oh, fine, I'll live with you then. Millions. Yeah, like after she leaves, he's like, phew.
God, what if she accepted?
She would have seen right through my ploy.
She would have gone from riches to rags. Gar, moving on quickly to the music of this film.
More like Arista Flat, am I right?
Yeah, it's another jazz-inspired soundtrack and score, but it doesn't hit the heights of The Jungle Book. We noticed that the music was decidedly worse here, Gar. The Aristocats was the last Disney feature that Robert and Richard Sherman worked on as staff songwriters. Growing frustrated by the management of the studio following Walt Disney's death, they had a very close relationship with Walt. They'd often go into his office and get stuff approved over people's heads.
That sucks, though. I hate that. You know, if it's like, we had a good relationship with Walt, we got things overruled, we had our special relationship, and now we have to work on the same level as everybody else, and we're furious.
The results did speak for themselves.
They're very good songwriters, but still.
For the Disney studios, the Sherman Brothers completed their work on Bed Knobs and Broomsticks before leaving the studio. They would come back later for the Tigger movie.
Oh.
Randomly enough.
The wonderful thing about Tigger is Tiggers are wonderful things. We're not going to cover that film, are we?
I don't know. Is that a Disney tune film?
That's a tune film. That's
yeah, it's not in the canon. No, we might get there eventually.
Yeah, once we finish all of these films, we'll probably do like Pixar and the baby films. So we will cover the wonderful things about Tiggers.
The Sherman Bros composed multiple songs, but only the title song and scales and arpeggios, that's the word I was trying to get to. Yeah. I don't know why I put a C in there. Were included in the film. You really, really do miss their influence in this film following the high of The Jungle Book. Yeah,
there's one good, That's Why I Want to Be a Cat song. That's catchy.
Yeah, that's the one good song in there.
The rest is rubbish. Like, the rest is really bad. There's not a single catchy. Like, the arpeggio song is perfectly fine for what it's going for, but it's not meant to be like a catchy song. It's like, oh, the cats are singing their arpeggio songs. They're doing their arpeggios and scales. There you go.
Yeah, it's a bit of a throwaway song.
All the songs in this film are throwaway songs. As opposed to The Jungle Book, where every song is a banger, even the problematic ones.
And it drives the plot.
Whereas all the songs in this one are just there. It's like Tommy Smiley has his song, and there you go. It's the same as Tramp's song.
It's pretty much identical. I did think the jazz was well integrated into the score and the soundtrack, but this isn't enough to elevate the film. So, Nicole will cover it better later. We'll leave it there.
Bad. Just like the rest of this film, it's bad.
Yeah.
I hate this film. I really don't like this film. This film is super bad.
The overwhelming feeling I got from this film was that, as we said, Disney didn't care, so why should I? Their cost-saving strategy of the last decade has really caught up with them here, and a lot of people felt at the time that the heart was gone after Walt died. And as we all know, he could be difficult by all accounts, and sometimes better things were created when he let people do what they did best and got out of their way. But by all accounts, as we know, Roy O. Disney, Walt's brother, who ran the studio, had no faith in the division anymore, and clearly he got his way, and he was content to let animation die a slow death. These films are making money at the time, Gar. So, as we said, the last film made money, Aristocats is making money. So it may seem like a winning formula, so that's maybe why they didn't alter their path at the time. But as we will see in the coming weeks, they would eventually pay the price for their corner cutting.
Eventually people are like, wait a minute, this stuff sucks. These films stink. It's like, remember the good ones? And they started re-releasing the good ones then, didn't they?
Yeah, and I think they really traded on good faith based on their previous works and churned out some rubbish because they said, people like what we do, we're making money, clearly it's working.
Because it's interesting, they turned out much of their best work during an era when no one was willing to watch it. It's like both financially, economically, and just, emotionally, because of the war, people weren't willing to watch films. So stuff like Fantasia, which I didn't love, but was artistically interesting, and then films like Bambi and Sleeping Beauty didn't hit the heights you probably would expect. And then when people are flocking to the cinemas to see their muck, it's like, now we're not trying.
Now when it matters most and people have goodwill and we have an audience,
is when we're going to cut the corners and churn out these cheap shitty looking animations with bad stories that we've told before. And there you go. Job done. Cash our checks. Aren't we so good? This film stinks.
People have a soft spot for the music and the characters of this film, and I have no idea why. The animation is poor and almost unwatchable, as we said. The frame rate and the transitions were distracting, and you couldn't even get into the film because you're just watching how bad it was. You're just like, this is bad. I can't even pay attention to what's happening or the story.
Yeah, as I lean forward to check how far we're into this podcast, we're 27 minutes into this podcast. We're done. Yeah. You're going to be wrapping up in a couple of minutes. We're on you're like, what's the legacy of the film? There is none. There we go. They tried to make a sequel. and then they cancelled it. That's the legacy of the film. It's rubbish. It's really bad. It's so boring. It's a boring film with boring music and bad animation with stories you've seen before. Why would you watch it? There's no reason to watch it. It's bottom of the list. It's below the Three Caballeros, Ken.
Okay, that's big talk.
That's big talk. It's the worst Disney animated feature.
Overall, the film is cheap, lazy, unmemorable.
I won't say lazy. I hate I hate saying lazy.
Yeah, we have to recognize the creative endeavor of the people who worked on it, but
it's just not good. I'm sorry.
It just feels inconsequential.
Because I think calling it something lazy is a lazy way to critique something. Because it's like, oh, it's lazy. It's probably not. As I said, the worst things in the world had people work hard on them. It just didn't work well on them.
Yeah, I suppose the better word is unmemorable and inconsequential.
It's just... There's no reason to watch. It's completely derivative. Like, completely. There's not, as I said, there's not one thing in this film that you haven't seen in a Disney film before. It's seen done better in a Disney film before, no less. Because, like, you know, Cinderella hits the beats of... Sleeping Beauty hits the beats of Snow White. They're very similar films. But Sleeping Beauty looks better, it's plotted better, and I think it probably has better music. And better character designs as well, and it's funnier. So, like, if you're going to actually hit the beats of a film you've already hit before, at least do it well, you know?
And make it original in some way.
Yeah, like, Sleeping Beauty isn't a super original film. As I said, it's pretty derivative of Snow White in terms of many of its beats, but it's better than Snow White. It improves on them. So it takes that format and that template and makes it better, makes it prettier, makes it more interesting, makes it funnier, and makes it sound better and look better, I think, most importantly, because the animation of that film is gorgeous. But this just takes Lady and the Tramp, 101 Dalmatians, smushes them together and says cats. It's like a palette swap. It's
a facsimile, I would describe it as. It's like basically a mishmash, as we said, of everything that's come before. And I just thought it was so strange that the first time they come up with an original story, they just copy something
cats.
It's not even that long ago. This is within the last decade these films have come.
Yeah, these are their recent films.
As you said, Gar, I think this speaks for the film in that it has no real legacy. People like it. There's some people that have a soft spot for it, as I said. But, you know, other than that, there was a sequel that was planned that was cancelled. You see some memes around the place. There was a Lizzo meme recently.
Was there?
Where the black cat, what's his name again? Toulouse?
I don't know.
He goes to play the piano, and instead of the song that he plays in the film, it plays a Lizzo song that has a piano opening.
There you go.
So that's the legacy of this film.
That's the legacy of this film. There was one meme. A single meme. Terrible.
Awful. I've watched it.
It's rotten!
Okay, cool cats. That's nearly it for the show this week. Our resident bebopper Nicole is coming up in just a few minutes with a song from the movie, so be sure to stick around for that. You can find new episodes of Magic by Design every Monday, where all magical podcasts are downloaded. Check out our website at magicbydesign.buzzsprout.com to find a full list of podcast providers. There, you will find a full list of our previous episodes as well.
The good ones.
The good ones, if you're catching up or feel like revisiting an old favourite, to wash the taste of this one out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Magic by Design is on all your favourite social media platforms, with the exclusion of some ones that we're too old for, as we said in previous weeks.
You bring up this TikTok thing every week. I think Ken secretly just wants to be young enough for TikTok. He wants TikTok kids to think he's cool.
I wish I was a TikTok kid, but I can't. It's beyond me.
You can just do bad covers of Disney songs on TikTok, and I'm sure that'll take off.
Disney dances.
There you go.
You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Magic by Design Pod, on Twitter at Magic Design Pod, and on Insta at Magic by Design Pod. If you're a fan of the show, please do consider giving us a review on your podcast platform of choice. Share the podcast on your socials, or even recommend the show to a fellow Disney fan. This isn't a threat, but if it's not 5-star, we will adopt a gaggle of jazz-playing cats in your name, and nobody wants that.
Those cats were weird. His cat friends. Like, look at my vagrant cat friends. Like, oh, let's play with these weird cats.
They threw in a load of nationalities for some weird reason. Yeah. There was a Chinese one. There was a black guy.
Because again, you didn't have the stereotypes. It's like someone looked over the script of this film. It's like, not enough stereotypes. Get some stereotypes in there.
There needs to be at least 20% more racism in this script. We'll be back next week at the same time, same place, with Disney's 21st animated feature, Robin Hood. But until then, stay safe and remember, ladies don't start fights, but they can finish them. Well said. Now then, Nicole is here to sing us out with Everybody Wants to Be a Cat, one of the only good things about this film, from the Aristocats, and she's also got some groovy fun facts about the music of the film. Thanks for listening, and over to you, Nicole.
Hello Disney lovers, it's me, Nicole, your musical correspondent, coming to you live from my bedroom. This week, we're taking a look at the smoky jazz music of the Aristocats. It is said that French cabaret entertainer and actor Maurice Chevalier listened to the demo of Richard Sherman singing the Aristocats, imitating his voice, and was brought out of retirement to sing the song. The Sherman Brothers composed a song called My Way's the Highway, sung by the character Thomas O'Malley. But the filmmakers asked Terry Gilkyson to look at it under the new title Thomas O'Malley Cat. Gilkyson admitted that the song was the same but reorchestrated, and he was given the credit for composing. Again, George Bruns composed the score, channeling his previous work with jazz bands in the 1940s. This week, we're looking at the classic Everybody Wants to Be a Cat. I hope you enjoy it. Everybody wants to be a cat, because a cat's the only cat who knows where it's at. Everybody's picking on that feline beat, cause everything else is obsolete. I swear with a horn makes you wish you weren't born every time he plays. With a square in the act, you can set the music back to the caveman days. Cha-cha-cha-boom, away. I've heard some corny birds who try to sing. Still a cat's the only cat who knows how to swing, who wants to dig a long-haired gig or stuff like that. When everybody wants to be a cat, I swear with a horn makes you wish you were born every time he plays. With a square in the act, you can set the music back to the caveman days. Yes, everybody wants to be a cat, because the cat's the only cat who knows where it's at. While playing jazz, you always has a welcome mat, cause everybody digs a swinging